What's going on, fellow A-plussers? It is I, your host, Adam Perez, back once again with a brand new video for you guys today as we're going to be getting into your live viewer questions. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you went ahead and submitted your questions over this past weekend, while we didn't necessarily get to all of them this past episode of A-Plus Hero Report, it was Mother's Day edition, so I wanted to cut it a little bit short to spend some time with the family. For those of you we did not get to answer questions for, we will be answering them now in this particular standalone live viewer question post for you guys. So thank you everybody who certainly participated. But let's go ahead and begin where we left off at with the most talented man in the world. I suck my own balls is here. He says, what I think made RPM was that despite being disturbingly dark in some places, it didn't let the edginess become its sole personality. It tried to be more mature, but not in an overly edgy way like some fan films do these days. RPM could never have been overly edgy since the Zords were animal car hybrids with giant googly eyes. The series used minimal Zord footage as a result of for fear of massive mood whiplash. Both SPD and RPM, coincidentally, the two series that went by three-letter acronyms, are lessons in how to do mature stories without being crushingly dark and depressing. I totally will agree with you there. Originally, RPM was going to be the last Power Rangers show, so they went all out with puns and breaking the fourth wall. From what I gather, Disney was on its last series of PR. So they hired a new executive producer, Eddie Guzlian, threw him a budget and basically said, go make one more. We really don't care. Eddie promptly blew the budget on the sci-fi pastiche that was the first half of RPM. Disney decided they did care about money and fired Eddie, hired back Chip Lynn, who's a veteran of at PR and has him coast the franchise and series to a decent landing. At least when Chip Lynn finished the series, he still let Eddie work like the episodes he had written and produced. The episode themselves, you couldn't really tell any difference after watching. That's how good Chip Lynn was at managing the show after he was brought back. A shame Chip Lynn could get the same amount of control during the Neil Saban season, except for the first half of Dino Charge. Anyway, RPM was and still is one of the best and darkest seasons of Power Rangers we've had to that point. Launched the careers of Eka Darville and Rose McIver. Yeah, big fans of both of them, honestly. Rose, especially fresh off of her iZombie series quite a few years back. I am kind of curious as to what Rose is up to nowadays. She didn't have a job at the time when I saw her at Fan Expo Dallas years ago. I think it was the year right after, or that same year that iZombie sort of wind up wrapping up. And she was always open to the idea of returning to Power Rangers because she does in fact live in New Zealand. And if the script is certainly worthy enough, maybe she might come back one day. Who certainly knows? But thanks for bringing that up. I stuck my own balls. The most talented man in the world. Who else we got here? Roberto. So I was going through Power Ranger threads online and came across a convention when came to conversation when came to Ninja Steel. While we all know about how bad of a season Ninja Steel was. The majority of the Neil Saban era season were, except for Dino Charge as a whole. I read that a lot of fans were upset that Ninja Steel abandoned a lot of Japanese aspects that came to the Sentai counterpart of Ninja Steel, Ninja. A lot of the aspects were removed when it came to monsters and villains, and Madame Odious being the most obvious. Instead, everything was replaced by having villains be part of Intergalactic Game Show, which never really made any sense. Anyways, just learning about this makes Power Rangers Samurai seem much more like the much better series that we got when it came to representing Japanese culture. I probably would agree with you. While Samurai was a copy and paste of a Sentai counterpart, it did at least satisfy some fans who were both Sentai and Power Ranger fans. Clearly, Samurai was what launched as Power Rangers at the time. Does this tell you that sometimes adapting the entirety of Sentai season for Power Rangers is the only choice if you really cannot escape the aspects of Japanese culture. But as long as you're also able to make a story a little bit more original, heck, Ninja Steel, which was beloved season of Ninja Storm, which was a beloved season of Power Rangers, wasn't still considered the best series when it comes to ninja themed series compared to Ninja Steel. The only Japanese elements that were retained in Ninja Storm were the Ninja Academy, Sensei Lothor and Cam being from Japanese background and the Japanese writings. When they came to the ancient scrolls, Ninja Steel removed the Japanese aspect and made it series very weird and generic. Yeah, I do wonder if they did that out of fear. Like, I wonder if they got some backlash for doing Power Rangers Samurai and sort of whitewashing the Red Ranger, if you will. I think a lot of people really wanted him to be, Asian of Asian descent in Power Rangers Samurai. So I do wonder if getting into Ninja Steel, if the idea of doing something like that again just gave them cold feet. So they were like, you know what? We're just going to remove anything related to Japanese or ninjas in general as much as we possibly could. Because when it comes to Ninja, well, I definitely wasn't the biggest fan of this series. I surprisingly actually liked it more than I did Ninja Steel. But there were aspects of like Magic Academy, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Blue Ranger was going to like school, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe they all were in some point in time, talking about clans. The only carryover that I felt was there was, I believe, the main characters who's like, was it his father that was like his sensei or something like that and went missing? I can't remember. It's been so long since I watched the Ninja, but yeah, they definitely tried to make Ninja Steel as different from the Ninja as they possibly could. But I think that's also the struggle when you are trying to adapt Power Rangers. I mean, the idea of taking, like, I think you have to be picky about the Power Rangers series that you're picking out. I think a lot of that has to come down with the themes. If the themes of a series are very much sort of crafted and linked in with like Japanese or Asian culture, it's a little bit difficult to have to then adapt that here to America, and then it just kind of comes across as whitewashing. You know what I mean? So I think if anything, it's one of the well, I don't want to say it's one of the reasons, but it's yet another reason as to why originality is just key. You don't necessarily want to be held down by footage or trying to adapt another show to make Power Rangers sort of thing. So yeah, it definitely had its problems for sure, Roberto. I think we already did Nicole Robertson. Next up, we have Jack Daniels. What were some underrated, well-known movies that deserve more love? For me, The Amazing Spider-Man was a reboot when it came to origins of Peter Parker Spider-Man. It was really good for what it was at the time, and it's even more of a rewatch thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home. Another movie, of course, is first Michael Bay movie, Transformers film in 2007. Despite being the beginning of the bastard era of Michael Bay by most people, this did launch Transformers for the public when it came from adapting popular toy lines and animated property. Clearly, the general audience still love the franchise to this day with the upcoming 7th film, Rise of the Beast. Yeah, people still love themselves some Transformers, man. It was such a huge part of pop culture growing up in the 80s, especially after that Transformers movie. We've always just kind of been linked with Transformers, so people love seeing the movie. I think the Amazing Spider-Man is definitely a good call. While I always liked the first Amazing Spider-Man. It really was Spider-Man 2 that kind of fell off a little bit for me. But look, I think even Spider-Man 2 is one of those movies I gotta even go back and rewatch a little bit more. I think I only seen it one time. Didn't really care to see it many more times than that. But I have rewatched The Amazing Spider-Man several times, and I really do enjoy it. I think it's probably Andrew's best, honestly. As far as like movies that I feel are underrated, look, I'm still a big defender of Man of Steel. I don't know if you've ever seen like those tweet messages where it's like the post asks you the question like, which movie are you defending like this? And it's got like a huge text message, huge text message that somebody's typing out. Man of Steel for me is usually that film that I'm usually defending. I know the movie's certainly not perfect, but for me it is one of those movies that I can continue to go back and watch over and over again, and it just gets better and better. I mean, some people feel some type of way about Kevin Costner as Clark's family, and maybe the speech that as Clark's father, maybe the speech that he gives about letting the kids on the bus die, the concept of him like stopping Clark from saving him from a tornado and things like that, right? Some people probably roll their eyes and think it's just absolutely ridiculous, but there are aspects of that movie that I definitely was a big fan of. So I would definitely put Man of Steel up there. I would even say, since you brought up Transformers, I would even say Transformers 3. I was not a big fan of Transformers number 2, but Transformers 3 for me, the Battle of Chicago, was everything. And I just thought it was a really great sort of send off for the trilogy itself. So that's probably another one that I would say is pretty underrated. That's underrated and deserves more love. There was another film on the tip of my tongue that I just cannot remember now thinking about this. Other films that I felt are underrated but deserve more love. I might have to come back to that. If it pops in my head, Jack Daniels, I'll remind myself. But those are my two movies that I'll probably go with as of right now. John Schuyler, what's up, John? How awesome was Trent in Dino Thunder? He was pretty good, and I'm actually surprised. Like, I haven't seen him in more stuff after that. But then again, I haven't really been looking, so I guess it shouldn't surprise me. But if anything, I was really pleased with what he was able to do in that series. In a way, his character arc was similar to that of Tommy's in MMPR. Both of them were evil rangers during the series, though for Trent, he was evil for a little bit longer due to his Sentai counterpart choosing to be a villain till the end of the series, because Powers kept manipulating him and he himself was bored of living, so he chose to be a villain as a way to find a purpose aside from being a surgeon. It says Trent, in my opinion, was written better than Tommy because while his Sentai counterpart remained evil, the writers were smart enough to turn him back to good and replicate him into an evil clone. That way, the Japanese footage of the White Ranger could still be used. We continue to get further development with the rivalry between him and Connor. Tommy himself kept reminding Connor that he was evil himself and told him not to give up on Trent. Trent was a badass, both as an evil ranger and when he turned back to good. While his return to Ninja Steel was a bit sour because he didn't have much of a focus, it was still really nice to see him back as a veteran ranger and fight alongside the other previous Power Rangers. I would like to see even Trent return and be a mentor to a new generation of Power Ranger fans, either in live action or comic book form, whatever the case may be. I'm definitely open for that, John, in like a comic book form for sure. I really don't know what the future is going to be holding for the future of Power Rangers right now after Jonathan Whistle's reboot and the MMPR stuff. So we'll see. Who else we got next? Next up is Power Rangers Legacy. He says, I think Psycho Ranger episodes from In Space were among the best in their series in the overall franchise. They were pretty legit. This was the first time the Power Rangers had ever faced adversaries that had a hard time beating and did not have an authority figure to help with answers. That scene where the Psychos had the Space Rangers completely at their mercy had to be pulled back by Astronomer in order to stop them killing them. Is that like the closest a villain has ever come to scoring a complete victory over the Rangers? It might be. The episode Silence is Golden, I think, was and is still one of the best written episodes in the entire history of Power Rangers because it was about Cassie trying not to get her identity exposed by the Psycho Rangers after learning that they took human form. That was pretty intense. What was even cool about that episode was the 3 surviving Psycho Rangers were played by actual voice actors. They really did look like mirror counterparts of the Space Rangers. For a kid show, writing was amazing and really made sense and made everything so intense. The Psycho Rangers were really the toughest challenge the Space Rangers had encountered in their series. Even the callback to action during the Lost Galaxy team up, which was absolutely epic. How awesome were they? What were other episodes in all of PR you found were considered as one of the best? Probably the Lost Galaxy episodes when the Pink Ranger dies. I think that was a crossover event. I think a 2-parter, if I'm not mistaken. That was a great one. The In Space finale was always epic for me. Clearly Forever Red. And while I'm not a big fan of Operation Overdrive, I think those two, Once a Ranger episodes with Adam returning were some of my favorites. Those easily just come to mind for me because they're just kind of implanted in my head, just burned into my head after checking them out for myself. But thanks for that, Power Rangers Legacy. Francois Dupont. What's up, Francois, our international superstar here? What were some of your favorite episodes of Dino Fury? Mine was part three of the finale when Amelia finally learned the truth about her parents and their outstanding backstory with Void Knight and Centaura. The entire sequence was just beautiful and at the same time emotional. This was some of the best writing we had in Power Rangers in a very long time. I watched a live stream from Hasbro Pulse from months ago, and Hunter Dano herself talked about how emotional it was filming the entire finale. And when she found out about her relationship with Void Knight and Centaura, the writers and Simon Bennett kept their secret from her until the day of shooting. Ah, man, there are a couple. In no particular order. The first one, for some reason, that comes to mind is the Izzy and Fern reveal when she finds out that she's a Power Ranger. I thought that I actually kind of really enjoyed that episode. The finale for season one, when we got a lot of the original fight footage as they're trying to stop Zed and his machine. I thought that was pretty epic also. I still continue to be a big fan of Izzy's introduction episode when her and her brother wind up becoming Power Rangers. I think that's when Zato is like interviewing Izzy, if I'm not mistaken, at the track meet. So that was always another good one I really enjoyed. Oh God, I can go on and on. There are quite a few. I'll leave it at that for now. But if other ones come off the top of my head, I'll definitely let you know. Michael, what's up, Michael? We all know for a while that Mighty Morphin kept getting rebooted. The Boom Comics, 2017 movie, etc. But there are teams other than MMPR. Which season would you like to see updated and reboot in Hasbro's reboot? Down the line, if they continue the traditional but in all new footage or even in comic book form, this could apply if Hasbro decides to continue the current long-running franchise while doing their reboot, because why can't we have both? For those who don't want just a reboot universe but want their current franchise to continue, Japan clearly has been doing multiple Sentai projects at once for older fans and new fans. The difference, though, I will say, Michael, between that is that they're all within the same universe for Super Sentai in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, right? So like they are known for like just a linear 50, 40, almost 50 years of Super Sentai sort of thing. So the idea of them coming back, I don't think bothers older and new fans. I think the problem that you have, and I think that Hasbro might be facing now is the idea of like, here, if you really are very much in tune with doing a reboot and launching something else, Jonathan Entwistle stuff, you really don't want to confuse the general audience as much. And the reason why I say that is right now you're trying to push Power Rangers further into the general audience once again, right? They did that with the MMPR reunion special. Clearly, everybody knows that. But outside of MMPR, nothing has really sort of gained traction in the general audience's eyes. So the idea that you are creating Jonathan Entwistle's reboot is hopefully something that will modernize Power Rangers a little bit and get more general audience members, new fans especially, to jump on board and hopefully make it popular again. The idea of doing two back-to-back or side-by-side, if you will, I think you just start confusing people, the general audience, in regards to, so what's Power Rangers now and what isn't Power Rangers? So this is no longer part of Power Rangers, or is it? Is it still connected in some way, or is what Jonathan Whistle's working on, is that the new Power Rangers? So I just think you just start muddying the waters a little bit. So I think it's pick or choose, and look, for me, again, the idea is like, if they are going to do more specials, I really do think it's going to be MMPR and just MMPR, and maybe you can get away doing something like that parallel to what Jonathan Entwistle's doing, because most people recognize MMPR. Outside of that, I think you're doing an uphill battle, but that's just my perspective, in my point of view. I could be absolutely wrong, and Hasbro could easily surprise me. I don't even know if they fully know what they want to do aside from the Jonathan Entwistle stuff right now. But the MMPR special was definitely impactful. So who knows? You never know, Michael. As far as like if I could, outside of MMPR, if I knew for a fact that Hasbro was going to stick with this franchise in some capacity and continue to give us legacy seasons, if there was any other team that I would like to see, definitely Time Force. I'm a big fan of Jen and Wes. I always thought that Aaron, along with Jason, were really great and had really great chemistry. The concept of time travel, I think, certainly considers to work till this day. So give me a Time Force. I would love to see what their futures are certainly looking like, but that would be my choice, honestly. Carlo Bernardo, if you were to rewrite both seasons of Megaforce as a true 30th anniversary, the first half of Megaforce would have little overarching plot, but each episode would give deeper. Well, if I were to rewrite both seasons of Megaforce as a true 20th anniversary celebration, the first half of Megaforce would have a little overarching plot, but each episode would give deeper insight into one of the Rangers. The second half would be more plot focused. One of the Rangers would be a super nerd of Power Rangers, and we would get quite a few references throughout the first season. Troy would still be a quiet, reserved leader, but the reason would be that he was always had trouble socializing because he's naturally introverted and shy, almost similar to the character of Andros. His teammates are the first close friends he's ever had. And Gosai's backstory with Zordon would be fully explained, and Robo Knight would be reduced to more of a Blue Centaurian type role instead of outshining the Rangers. The Megaforce powers would be destroyed completely at the end of the first season, and they take the first few episodes of the second season getting Gokaiger powers and legendary powers. The second season would center on Rangers searching across the globe for the missing Ranger keys and Zords. Vrak's role of manipulating several villain factions would remain the same, except he would end up being the final boss in charge of the Armada instead of Mavro. He and Troy would have some rivalry going on. The finale would be a three-parter with Tommy and a few other veterans interacting with the team all throughout the finale instead of right at the show at the very end. Do you cool dudes like my take on the 20th anniversary? I definitely don't mind it, Carlo. It probably wouldn't be my approach because I'm still very much a believer in the idea that I'm gonna need my Go Sager and my Go Kaiser series to be completely separate. So I'm definitely not even bringing Go Kaiser in for my second season of Megaforce. I'm literally gonna make Go Kaiser its own entire season. So without the Go Kaiser powers, I'm completely cool with it, in the sense of really focusing on the Go Sager stuff, and really allowing, and however you want to go ahead and do the plot for each first two seasons absolutely works for me. But for me, at least, like if I were to certainly run it, I would separate the two. I would definitely make Go Sager and Go Kaiser its own thing. But I definitely like some of your ideas for sure, Carlo. Morgan Hutchinson, with the ongoing strike that's happening recently, do you think shows like the final season of Cobra Kai will be delayed for a while? To continue, this also benefits Power Rangers when it comes to being filmed in New Zealand. Can you imagine if Cosmic Fury or even MMPR anniversary specials were still filmed in Los Angeles to this day? And we would have to wait a while until both were completed. So right now, it is a relief that both Power Rangers 30th anniversary projects already wrapped filming months ago before the strike unexpectedly occurred. Does this even tell you that Hasbro reboot itself is already finished with its script and is already in the waiting list for production? I believe Jinsaku, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he did reference the idea a couple weeks back. I think he did state that so the Entwistle show is going into pre-production in November. He did mention that the script was already done for Jonathan Entwistle stuff. So I am expecting yeah, also when the script got turned into Hasbro said it was really good and one of the best that they've read. So that's good news. So the script is definitely in. So they definitely are not going to be touching that as of right now. I mean, look, they might do rewrites kind of on set as filming begins. But again, pre-production doesn't begin until November. So if anything, they definitely have some time on their hands, and they definitely have sort of dodged a bullet, if you will. Um, let's see here. Do you think shows like the final season of Cobra Kai will be delayed for a while? I don't know what the situation for Cobra Kai is. I don't know. I would assume that the scripts are already done. I haven't heard any news that it's being delayed. Like Stranger Things is being delayed. But I think Cobra Kai may already have its final season drafted out, so it may not be delayed. That's kind of where my mindset is at. So I'm not expecting it to as of right now. Thank you for that, Morgan. Jackson Peterson. Is it true that The Rock is returning to Fast and the Furious franchise for Fast X despite his BBQ beef with Vin Diesel? If so, is it just a cameo or a significant supporting role? I haven't read or seen anything else, so I wouldn't be spoiled with a movie actually coming out. Do you see him returning either in Fast X or Part 2? Could his return somehow redeem him for a while, redeem himself a little from the backlash of Black Adam film not doing so well at the box office? So I'm gonna throw up this. I'm just gonna do this real quick. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. If you don't want to know anything about Fast X, come back when I do this again. Okay, so spoilers, 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 spoilers. To get into your question there, Jackson, from what I have read, yes, Dwayne the Rock Johnson is in fact back for Fast X. Couple of big news articles have in fact been working with this. I believe The Wrap. I did post this on the Facebook page and then removed it, realizing that they kind of spoiled it for those who haven't had the opportunity to see Fast X yet. But according to The Wrap, Fast X shocker, Dwayne Johnson returns to Fast and the Furious franchise. Um, it says The Rock's surprise tag appears at the end of the movie. So it doesn't look like he's in the full movie, but what they're suggesting is that he's making an appearance in the post-credit sequence for the upcoming Fast X, which winds up dropping this upcoming Friday. So apparently, yes, to answer your question. So it does seem as though when it comes to The Rock, he will be returning. It's kind of crazy to me because, yeah, there was a lot of pushback. Vin Diesel really tried hard to get this man to kind of come into this movie, and he just would not. To the point of like, Vin Diesel like publicly put out there that he had asked Dwayne and was trying to ask Dwayne again, but you had somebody like The Rock. Dwayne was, I don't know if he took offense to it, but he was kind of upset that Vin Diesel kind of put him out there, if you will. It's like, look, bro, we already talked about this. I already mentioned no, I respectfully sort of declined. He seemed pretty adamant about not returning to the Fast X or Fast and the Furious franchise whatsoever. It seems as though, like, look, The Rock wanted to kind of just do his own thing, but clearly something has changed. I don't know if they did that all for like as a publicity stunt sort of thing, and this was supposed to be the big surprise anyway. Like, I gotcha, right? Like, I don't know when this scene was certainly filmed, whether it was before Black Adam, after Black Adam. Who knows if it was like thrown in there sort of thing last minute. I really don't know the timing of it. Maybe once the film drops and we get to see Dwayne The Rock Johnson in it, then I do think maybe the floodgates will open and you'll start seeing more people talking about how something like that came together. My first instinct was very much like yours, like, man, Black Adam must have really suffered from this, or Dwayne Johnson must have really suffered from Black Adam, and maybe he's trying to turn the good graces around for himself a little bit and decided, hey, you know what, I will join Fast X here since things aren't looking too good on the DC property side of things. So I don't know if it was a last minute change or he originally always planned to do that. But apparently, according to The Wrap and other sources, the Dwayne The Rock Johnson is in the Fast X post-credit sequence. Spoilers over. Spoilers over. All right. Next up, we got Kurt Moreno here. Marino, excuse me. How do you think the whole Spider-Verse would end up being like if all three roles were switched up? Like, Andrew Garfield was cast as the original Spider-Man, Tom Holland was cast as the Amazing Spider-Man, and Tobey Maguire was cast as the MCU Spider-Man. Man, I'm gonna go with the mindset of them sort of being all in their prime during this time period, instead of like their current age. Because a Tobey Maguire MCU Spider-Man just seems weird at his later age. So if they were going in their prime, the idea, um, I think Toby probably would have fit really well in the MCU Spider-Man, honestly. There is like an innocence that Tom Holland brings to that particular role that I think Toby Maguire really nailed extremely well when it comes to the first Spider-Man movie. So I do think Toby Maguire would actually really do well as the MCU Spider-Man if he was certainly in his prime at the time. That definitely would be a trilogy I would be really kind of excited for. Look, I think they're all extremely talented actors for sure, like really strong actors. Um, I think for me again, Andrew Garfield in the original Spider-Man with like Sam Raimi. You know, I always looked at Andrew Garfield as such a vast difference from any of the other Spider-Man that I've kind of known, with the exception of like his quirky comments, you know, and his talk backativeness as Spider-Man. Uh, I don't know if I would have liked Andrew Garfield being directed by Sam Raimi as Spider-Man. Um, I just don't know if Andrew Garfield really would have fit what Sam Raimi was looking for. So I think it would have just been an odd collaboration. Not to say that he couldn't make it work, but when I'm thinking about it, it just seems like an odd collaboration. And I think Tom Holland could probably do the Amazing Spider-Man pretty well. I've kind of seen him very much in like dramas, you know, him opposite Emma Stone. I will say I did like the chemistry between Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield. I don't necessarily know if that would be there for Tom Holland and Emma Stone. She's definitely much taller than him, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it would work. Then again, Zendaya is also. Um, I'm definitely on board with the Tobey Maguire MCU Spider-Man. I might pass on that Andrew Garfield as the original Spider-Man. Tom Holland as the Amazing Spider-Man feels a little bit off to me, but I do think he would make a great Spider-Man. Maybe not necessarily the Peter that I would want in the Amazing Spider-Man, though, if that makes any sense. But I'm definitely on board. Tobey Maguire, MCU Spider-Man, if I had to pick. But yeah, I'm down for that. Gabriel Glasgow, what's up, Gabriel? My theory on Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4. I like the overall arc of the story. Going to school, fighting street level crime, getting entangled in a a Black Cat love triangle. Ooh, okay. I drop Miles. He should be younger than Peter, someone he can mentor, not a peer. Also, I think just keeping it to one villain or making Hammerhead more of a nuisance villain, while having Mr. Negative be the main focus. Okay. I also think about having him freelancing at the Bugle instead of volunteering at Feast. Feast is going to play the bills, and it sets up for him to cross paths with the MCU's Eddie Brock down the line, lay some breadcrumbs for the second film, makes narrative sense, and is true to the comics. If we were to get a fifth, maybe a small cliffhanger of Peter going back to the same bakery that MJ worked at, knowing he doesn't want to make her remember who he is, maybe just he be friends with her. He would either see Zendaya back or just a body double from afar, a brief close-up of Zendaya from No Way Home. This is the best I can do without getting very long. What do you guys think? Any theories of your own you guys or you guys want to see in Spider-Man 3? Well, look, Gabriel, I really appreciate the theories, man. When it comes to talking about the future of Power Rangers, I'm definitely here for it. So I like the overall arc of the story. Peter going to school. I would assume he's in college now. Fighting street crime level, getting entangled in a Gwen and Black Cat love triangle. I will say this. I don't know if I would go the love triangle route, but definitely give me Black Cat. I think it's still one of those things that's very fresh for Peter after everything that happened in No Way Home. You know, despite the way that he left the bakery, I'm pretty sure it might be a little bit hard for him to kind of get over her. You know what I mean? Um, So I think the idea of a temptation, right, would really go a long way. And so I don't even really want to think about Peter with somebody opposite of Zendaya, but flirtatious and suggestive. I think Black Cat would be a lot of fun to kind of change things up for Peter Parker. So I would be completely on board with that. You say, I drop Miles. He could be younger than Peter, someone he can mentor, not a peer. Also, I think about keeping it to one villain or making Hammerhead more of a nuisance villain while having Mr. Negative be the main focus. I wouldn't mind either of them. I get the idea of one villain though. I would prefer one villain, but if there is a bigger mastermind behind things, that would be even more interesting. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that too. But I think for me, my first go-to would be one villain. Um, and as far as Miles, yeah, I still want to see Miles in the MCU at some point in time. I don't know what Sony's plans are. I'm still very much under the belief that Miles will come into live action through his Spider-Verse trilogy. I just don't know if that will land him in the MCU or the Sony sort of universe, if you will. Maybe he will have a brief run-in with Tom at some point in time in his trilogy, but I mean, they have sort of hinted at the idea of there being a Miles Morales out there, so why not? I'd be down for it. I also like to see him freelancing at the. I'd also think about having him freelancing at the Bugle instead of volunteering at Feast. Yeah, give me the Bugle. I kind of would like to see. I would kind, for me, one, it would be great to not only see Tom Holland as Peter pick up photography, but I also like the idea of him working with J. Jonah Jameson, especially knowing that Peter just knew that this man revealed his identity but no longer knows what it is. I think that would be a really fun dynamic, and you gotta bring back the same guy that played J. Jonah Jameson for sure. But yeah, you said I'd also like to have him freelancing at the Bugle instead of volunteering at Feast. Yeah, give me the Bugle, and that definitely lines up the idea of Eddie Brock being there as well. So I'm digging it, man. I'm digging it. However you want the cliffhanger to be with him and Zendaya, that's cool with me. But yeah, I like majority of your theory here, man. Who else we got, man? I got a couple of the questions going here. Stewart, he says, I was 9 when Power Rangers SPD came out in 2005. I didn't catch it immediately. It was probably several months in before I watched it, but I was hooked immediately. I have been a fan ever since. I watched more or less consistently up through Samurai, dropped out for a while, and have since caught up and seen everything from the entire franchise, plus a smattering of things after that. It's hard to articulate what keeps me interested. I love sci-fi in general, but then there are certain concepts that especially hook me. Transformations, mysterious origins, ancient history, giant robots, all characters showing up again. I think you can imagine the connection. I don't know. It's just hits the sweet spot of all the right parts. I don't even care that it's formulaic or repetitive. I like that about it. So what were your guys' first reaction to Power Rangers, and what impact did it bring you even now as an adult? Do you still feel like a kid when watching any season up to now? And I am, Stuart, I would like to ask you this, and don't take offense to it, okay? It's a legit question I am kind of curious about, because I read something this past week that fascinated me. You said, I don't care that it's formulaic or repetitive. I like that about it. Do you happen to have like levels of anxiety or anything like that? Are you an overly anxious person? The only reason why I ask that is I read something today that said like people, or not today, but a couple days ago, that said something like people that have high anxiety or suffer from anxiety tend to like to watch shows on repeat. Like people can go down a rabbit hole of like Friends or The Office or Parks and Rec sort of thing. And they say the reason why that is because there's no surprises. Like you kind of already know what's coming. So you're immediately just at ease. You know what I mean? When you're watching television. So I thought that was interesting. And when you said that, it just makes me wonder, but you don't have to answer that question, Stuart, but I was just kind of curious. But I will say, look, what are some of your guys' first? So what were your guys' first season of Power Rangers? Mine was the premiere of MMPR. I do remember seeing the trailers and the promos leading up to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I specifically asked my parents if I could watch it in their room because they had the biggest television, and they actually let me. This might have been my first time that they let me actually like stay in their room by myself and just like watch television, because my stepdad used to lock his door all the time, and so I just remember the idea of being able to watch it for the first time, and I absolutely loved it. I don't know if Power Rangers introduced me to like martial arts movies, or if I was already a big martial arts head. Like, I really appreciated Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan growing up in the 90s. And so for me, the idea of not only martial arts, but teenagers with attitude, like very similar to me. I'm trying to remember, it came out in 93. I was born in 82. So I was relatively still pretty young. Let me just double check. MMPR premiere date. August 28th, 1993. So I was literally 10 at the time when this dropped. And I wasn't a teenager yet, but I was getting close. And for me, it was always one of those things of like, man, I can't believe, like, what if I were to get powers if I was in high school? It was just so cool to kind of see that for the very first time, because I don't believe I had ever been introduced to something like that. And for me, I really grew up a big Voltron fan, and I love Keith to death, the Red Lion pilot. And it was almost like seeing, but that was a cartoon. But seeing something like Power Rangers was like as close to live action as I would possibly be able to get to getting powers one day. You know what I mean? Like, that was the mindset of me sort of as a kid. And so it just had everything of transformations, like you mentioned, giant robots, martial arts. I absolutely adored it as a kid. I absolutely did. So I was definitely part of the huge crave that helped launch MMPR in the 90s. And as far as like what impact it brings to me now as an adult, and do I still feel like a kid when watching any season? I do. And, look, I will say this: Power Rangers for me not only makes me feel like a kid again, but it reminds me of the life lessons and kid lessons that I learned growing up. I think in my 40s now, and I think as a lot of people get older, we have a lot of life experiences, positive and negative, unfortunately. We get to see through the curtains and see how life truly is. We can kind of become a little cynical, unfortunately, right? We can get a little bit too in our heads, maybe push ourselves away from other people, kind of become loners as we get older, right? And sometimes I think as we get older, we make our own lives that much more complicated, right? And I think sometimes we forget sort of like the life lessons that we grew up as a kid. And while I understand that life, especially as we get older, is no longer black and white, there are certainly gray areas in that. I don't think it takes away from the importance that these life lessons as a kid sort of gave us as like foundational pieces to just being good people in the society in which we live amongst other good people. And so for me, um, sometimes keeping it simple when it comes to life is all that it's about. And I feel like Power Rangers, even in my 40s, reminds me of that. Like, I know sometimes we get tired of listening to the lessons of the day, but trust me when I say there are some adults out there that need to remember those life lessons for sure. And so for me, it's always a nice foundational piece of my life to just kind of remember how simple life should certainly be, and how those life lessons should certainly be used as a platform for us to still continue to live our lives, regardless if we're 40 or 50 years old. You know what I mean? So it still does wonders for me, honestly, when it comes to Power Rangers. Carter Matthews, let's see here, Carter, what you got for me? What do you think of the actor Mina Musaud, who recently live action Aladdin film, and his opinion on the Little Mermaid film that came out when it comes to box office potential? I did read this the other day. I'll try and pull this up here for you guys too, since you did leave a link to it. He got some fan backlash, I guess, talking about the box office potential for The Little Mermaid. He says, "Our film was unique in that audiences went to watch it multiple times. It's the only way we reached $1 billion mark with our opening. My guess is The Little Mermaid doesn't cross the billion-dollar mark, will undoubtedly get a sequel. First of all, I will just say the first thing that comes to mind when he says that will undoubtedly get a sequel, like, pretty sure your Aladdin 2 will get a sequel too, bro. Like, don't worry about it. Like, is that some jealousy that I'm sort of hearing in your voice there a little bit, sort of thing, you know? Um, he's not wrong in the sense of this movie. You need to have repetitive viewings for people to go ahead and check out, get to a billion-dollar mark for with our opening. Look, I'm gonna be honest. I got some bad news for Mina Masoud. And again, and this is just my own speculation. Um, I think he's underestimating this movie. I don't necessarily even think that this movie needs to be great for this movie to cross $1 billion. Um, I think he underestimates the power of women. I think he underestimates the power of little girls, white, black, Asian, whatever the case may be. To get a modern day version of the Little Mermaid, while it certainly might be copy and paste, I don't think the Lion King live action differed very much from anything. And I think that movie also made $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken, or relatively close. Originality and being unique, while it definitely helped Aladdin, which was a great movie, I certainly enjoyed it. I think for The Little Mermaid, it's probably going to have a little bit more deeper impact. And I don't even think it's going to be, I do think this movie will certainly be unique. I don't think it's going to be necessarily copy and paste. I do think that they are going to certainly modernize it a little bit. Will some people be turned off? Absolutely, just because some people these days, you can't please everybody, unfortunately. But I do think that this movie will cross $1 billion. I think this movie will cross $1 billion and people will go back to see it. I think families will take their little girls and moms will take their little girls all over the world. We'll have a great time with this movie. So I think it'll hit $1 billion, but clearly Mina Masoud certainly doesn't. Look, it's his own opinion. I don't think he said anything like negative or like hateful towards anybody. So like the fan backlash, the man's just giving his opinion. Maybe it's coming from a place of like jealousy a little bit. Talking about, oh, it's not gonna make $1 billion, but it's undoubtedly gonna go ahead and get a sequel. Like, bro, don't worry, okay? Will Smith is just, he's been undercover right now after the Oscars. Let Disney get themselves in hand. You made $1 billion. They're gonna make another Aladdin movie. So don't worry, Mina. You got one coming your way. Kenny, what's up, Kenny? What needs to be done in Superman Legacy to make Superman really stand out in the midst of all the other superheroes? He says, what needs to be, and this is from Kenny Tolentino. What needs to be in Superman Legacy to make Superman really stand out again amidst all the superheroes? I for one hope Gunn manages to show us a Superman that's true to the character's core, like the current Superman and Lois series, but also very much its own thing, not trying to replicate the Donner films. By the time Superman Legacy is released, it's been 47 years since that film, and maybe find a way to showcase his powers without the need to destroy an entire city. Would also love it if they managed to make a flying man look real instead of green screen. Obviously CG, double, or just hovering in the sky like Black Adam. Most of all, I think it's down to the narrative. Yeah, it's definitely going to be down to the narrative. I think Henry Cavill looked great as Superman, especially when it comes to flying. His sequence in Man of Steel with the Hans Zimmer score and him flying, beautiful. It literally gives me goosebumps every time I watch that scene. So I don't necessarily think Man of Steel had any problems with the green screen stuff. But look, I do think James Gunn will find the perfect balance to this movie. I really do. He has openly spoken about the core beliefs that he certainly wants Superman to have. And it definitely very much sort of lines up, I think, with what you're looking for. Not only the Superman and Lois mindset, but also the Richard Donner, Christopher Reeves Superman in the traditional sense of truth, justice, the American way. So I do think there will be Boy Scout moments, some lightheartedness to the character for sure. But I do think also at the same time, because he's casting for a younger Superman, I do think that James Gunn will find the balance that it takes. I don't think he's going to be overly cheesy, overly patriotic like maybe the Christopher Reeves character certainly was, but I do think that that'll definitely be balanced. If anything, look, Superman Returns, some people really enjoyed that. That definitely felt more like an homage to the Richard Donner Superman films. I don't think that movie did extremely well in the theaters, right? Because a lot of people like myself was like, solid story, really cool, but where's the action? Like the biggest action piece in that movie is him saving an airplane, which is a great action piece, don't get me wrong, but it's not the battle that we want. And I think maybe Man of Steel, which I had no problem with the destruction of the city. I had no problem. If anything, I'm under the impression they probably tried to evacuate majority of that city once the aliens certainly arrived, but I'm pretty sure they were definitely innocent bystanders in a lot of those buildings, you know what I mean? But for me, it was just sort of realistic, raw, a Superman that was very new, um things that he just didn't take into account within his first battle, if you will. And I remember after Superman Returns, a lot of people asking for bigger bombastic Superman action in its next film. So I think Zack Snyder delivered on what people wanted, but for some reason, I think it all of a sudden offended people. All of us, like, oh my God, he's killing all these people. Like, I just think it's a completely different mindset, and I think people I personally think people freaked out for no good reason. I had no problem with the destruction of the city, but some people definitely had pushback for it. But I'm not necessarily worried, Kenny. But I do think you're right. It is going to come down to narrative, and I do think that if anybody can certainly capture that, it is in fact James Gunn, who tends to bring pretty good balance to a lot of his films. So we'll see how it turns out. George, what's up, George? When the Cosmic Fury come in a few months, what do you want to see that would blow you away? Cosmic Fury? Another Death of a Ranger maybe would be really great. I don't know if we're gonna go that dark. The Return of Zordon would be pretty epic. I think the Return of Zordon would be pretty epic if they go that route. Like if Billy actually managed to do what he was saying that he was going to do, and bringing Zordon back, and maybe Zordon is the key to getting rid of Lord Zed. So if I had to pick, the Return of Zordon would blow me away. Doomsday, we got a couple questions left, but we're almost there. Doomsday, what is your absolute favorite part of Guardians of the Galaxy 3? I haven't seen it yet. You might have to ask Stuart that question. So if you want to repeat that question next week, Doomsday, feel free to. I'll leave that one for Stuart. What is your current ranking of all Guardian 3 movies from worst to best? Right now, for me, since I haven't seen 3, it's still Volume 1 as my favorite, and Volume 2. Volume 2 was a really big hit for me. I just really did not care about Ego as a villain for the movie, unfortunately. So it's actually probably one of my lowest ranking MCU movies, up there with like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Incredible Hulk, and Dark Thor the Dark World. So I'm really not a big fan of Volume 2, but I am eager to see Volume 3. Adrian Perez, isn't it funny that when it comes to superhero films, Sony is known to be not that good, but when it comes to Spider-Man animated films, people really love them. What do you think if, let's say, the MCU Tom Holland franchise was over at Sony, but kept the same writers and directors? It really is weird that the MCU is known for doing the Spider-Man films very, very well, but Sony is really bad at Spider-Man films and other superhero films, except the Miles Morales franchise. I just think it's all about the creatives that you have behind you. When Sony teams up with the MCU just has great talent behind that camera when it comes to directors and writers and actors that really know how to knock it out of the park. It's one of the reasons why those Sony films are as successful as they are, because they're in association with the MCU. Like the MCU Spider-Man movies are as close knit to a collaboration between Sony and MCU as you'll ever get, right? And it very much feels like the MCU leads the way, but when it feels like Sony is left to its own devices, I don't know if it's the executive producers or I don't know who it is over at Sony that's handpicking these people to write these movies and direct these movies, but they're just not linking up that well to create magic. Now you have somebody like Lord and Miller, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, that are a team that are doing sort of the animated stuff for Spider-Man, and I believe they're supposed to be doing television stuff for Spider-Man also. They are going full steam ahead and certainly knocking it out of the park. I almost would like Phil Lord and Miller to literally take over the Sony Spider-Man division and just create films also with putting the right people in place. I just think it's really just been a bad combination of finding the right directors and the right writers for those particular projects, unfortunately. So I think that's where they keep what would you think if, let's say, the MCU Tom Holland franchise was over at MCU but kept the same writers and directors? Yeah, that I don't know. If anything, I would be like, if I'm Sony, I'm like, hey, MCU, can you help me find writers and directors? I just wouldn't trust anybody at Sony to do it themselves. Next up, we got Sam Snoswell. All the fans want to see Kamen Rider adaptation in Western America. Western American, we could get Kamen Rider Zero One in US or maybe Kamen Rider Saber. Adapting Kamen Rider. You know, I don't think so anymore. I don't think so anymore. Um, there is a part of me that wonders if maybe Toei learned its lesson by letting the US adapt Power Rangers. I think it really held them when it comes to not only Sentai, but also their levels of storytelling. Like I think if you look at Sentai over the past like 3-4 years, I think they've done a really good job knowing that now that they no longer have to provide adaptation material for Power Rangers, they're really able to kind of do sort of their own thing, right? Um, as much as a big Super Sentai fan as I am, now that I have Power Rangers here in the US, I don't necessarily need Super Sentai themselves to kind of make their way over here for the US. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of hinders Super Sentai's growth to be globally recognized because we now have Power Rangers. So when it comes to Kamen Rider being adapted like Zero One or Saber, while I personally think that would be really cool, I don't know if that's something that Toei would want to do because they've kind of seen what's happened with Power Rangers, right? Like you kind of, I personally feel like you kind of hinder your growth for Kamen Rider, which is why I think there's been such a big push over this past year to get more Kamen Rider stuff to be able to air in the States, right? Like the Kamen Rider W series, I think, was animation form on Crunchyroll. That was a big move. I think Kamen Rider was a Black Sun, I think, is on Amazon. Right, that was a big move. So they are doing what's necessary to put Kamen Rider out there for Western audiences. I just don't know at this point if you want anybody adapting your work, because then it's just like you keep your content and your creations there, and we'll take what you guys have and we'll make it popular here in our own way. So no, I personally, while it sounds cool, I would rather keep Kamen Rider for Japan and let them grow it as globally as they possibly can. Like Kamen Rider, Shin Kamen Rider is going to be releasing here in the United States. I think it's only like one day, but there will be a release in here, right? So they are trying to do an expansion, and I think that's what they should be trying to do for sure. And last but not least, Abase. What's up, Abase? He says, we've talked about this before, how Super Sentai footage can really mess up the story or episode in Power Rangers. One story I found fascinating was that in Jungle Fury, a storyline from its Sentai source, Geki Ranger, featured a monster who was actually the mutated form of Cassie's father, which the character we ended up having was named Weiger, voiced by Jared Turner from Dino Fury, who was one of the Phantom Beast's general. The storyline was scrapped because the Sentai footage had too many scenes of Casey's Sentai counterpart not in his Ranger suit, so it would have been very difficult to edit around for Jungle Fury if not a lot of original footage was being used, as well as the writing. So do you agree that Power Rangers should continue to be all new and original in the future in order for the show to be more creative and immersive, and now having to rely and edit around Japanese footage? Look, I've been preaching that for like the past 4 years, Abase. Ever since we literally got the Power Rangers potential, Toei and Hasbro split sort of thing. I've been screaming to the heavens how much of a good idea I've been thinking that it is. Nobody probably has been paying me any mind or attention though, since I've been saying that for so long until we got something like MMPR's Once and Always, and people are like, "Oh, that's what original footage can do." Yes, that's exactly what original footage can do. But I'm glad you're on board, Abase. I feel like you've been on board for a while now in some of the comments that I've seen and questions that you've asked before. So yeah, I think Power Rangers should continue to be all new and all original in the future. It allows for more immersiveness, as you say, more creativeness. You don't have anything, uh, you know, handcuffing you to being stuck. And you don't have to rely on anything else. And I think that's just the smartest way to go. Will it be um, more will it be more cost to certainly create? Absolutely. But I think the payoff of creating something new and original is there that will overcome the idea of you putting more money towards it. People always say, "Oh, well, Power Rangers is made cheap. You got to make Power Rangers cheap." No, you don't. You don't. You can put more money behind it. I tell people all the time, you got to spend money in order to earn money. So you got to put that extra money towards production in order for it to look visually pleasing and have the impact that you need to attract new viewers and bring people in. And if it's a success because it is original, then more people watch it, your revenue continues to grow, and you make back that extra money that you put towards the project itself. So there's a lot of benefits, I think, to doing all new and all original. And I think if you ask any of the showrunners and some of the interviews, you could probably hear about the headaches that they have to deal with when it comes to writing around Super Sentai footage in order to kind of fit their story that they want to be able to tell. And that's just a lot of work, man. That's just a lot of work. And I think we literally have seen the best of Becca and Alwyn, the writers for Once and Always, when they're not handcuffed by Sentai footage. So I do think it's a very, very appealing to do creative, original and footage and things like that. So appreciate the question, Abase. But guys, that will in fact wrap it up for all of our live viewer questions today. So thank you very much to everybody that certainly participated. A little bit longer today just because of the fact that we had so many leftover questions. So I definitely do apologize about that, guys. But we'll certainly be back later on this weekend, this upcoming Sunday for you guys. No time yet as to when we will be airing APlus Hero Report on Sunday, but I'll definitely keep you guys posted when we post our next live viewer question post for you guys later on this week. So stay tuned to the YouTube channel. Keep checking the community tab. And until then, guys, that's going to do it for me. But until then, do me a big favor, as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.